everyone got first on the affirmative is Shannon. Yeah? Okay. Okay, is everyone ready? All right, time's recording. The resolution states the United States should become a state party to the International Criminal Court. Let's go over a couple of observations before we get to the affirmative case. First observation are definitions. We look towards state party that basically means a constituent of or a membership contextual to the ICC. The ICC, the International Criminal Court, basically refers to an international body that prosecutes individuals for international crimes such as war crimes, genocides, acts of aggression, that kind of stuff. The second observation is the policy round because of the word should implies a call to action, therefore default to net benefits when evaluating this round. The third observation is our plan text. The United States will become a state party to the International Criminal Court. This is going to happen as soon as possible and all through normal means. This basically means that there will be a constituent of the ICC. The first advantage is about United States soft power. What's happening in the status quo is that the United States currently refuses to join the ICC, and that's signaling a really bad message to neighboring countries. The A argument is that Trump inaccurately claims that they would lose sovereignty if they joined the ICC when there are no actual statements to back up why they would lose sovereignty. But the B argument is that Human Rights Watch basically has reported the United States actions that's signaling to other countries that it's okay to commit war crimes because they will go unchecked by their actual party. The C argument is that the UN has reported that the United States does not support the rights of its people and are signaling really bad messages to developing countries. The D argument is that specifically the countries of Guatemala, Venezuela, and Philippines, you can see here they don't even view they view the United States excuses to not be part of the ICC as an excuse for themselves to continue their own human rights abuses. For example, Duarte literally left the ICC just a couple of months ago, indicating that he was actually using the United States as an example for not, specifically isolated the United States as an example for a country that was able to get away with its crimes, therefore there was no check back. What's happening when the plan passes is that first of all, the state party, becoming a state party, signals commitment to the actual international community. The A argument, this actually strengthens the United States solvency. The reality of the situation is that legally, the ICC can only look into prosecution when the United States or when any of its constituents fail to prosecute their own individuals. And that's what's currently happening in the status quo. I'll get to you at the end of this advantage. The B argument that this signals that war crimes cannot go justified, especially in developing countries where there's a lot of violence that can happen across international borders, which means that the United States can now be viewed in a more favorable light and impact the way that the international community sees them. The second link is that the international community will follow suit. The A argument is that the Philippines specifically, Duarte and Trump actually have an unprecedented good relationship between us and the Philippines, which probably means that us signaling that we will be committed to resorting to human rights abuses probably means that Duarte and other neighboring countries will start to follow the model of the United States. But the B argument is that countries such as Burundi, South Africa actually cite the United States as an example whenever they meet in legislation of a country who's willing to, who they actually try to model their democratic process as they try to mirror their democratic process, which probably means that at the point where these countries are thinking of leaving the ICC, membership to the ICC is probably imperative to keep prosecution against individuals keep it maintained. The impact is that, first of all, we are maintaining soft power. This has two implications. First of all, that it is key to maintaining diplomacy. If there is there's an idea that if there is a rule of law across the entire international community, that these nations are going to be staying committed to it, which means that we can decrease the amount of, we can increase the amount of prosecution that can happen on a justice level. But the B argument is that this opens us up to negotiations specifically about human rights abuses that happen a lot of the time across international borders. The warrant for this is that there are 27 million people that are currently subject to human trafficking, which probably means that the only instance in which we can prosecute these individuals when we don't even know their identity is by cooperating with a whole bunch of different nations. The second advantage is about crimes against humanity, specifically to the United States. Yes?
So, okay. You talk about how they can only prosecute it when no one else is prosecuting. Are you aware that the ICC can prosecute cases without state cooperation?
Yes, they can, but my argument is the United States wouldn't necessarily lose sovereignty as a result. We're just saying that them being a part of the ICC signals to the ICC that they're willing to comply with the regulations that are happening. I'll get to more on the second advantage right now. So the second advantage is about crimes against humanity. What's happening in the status quo is that the United States is not participating in the actual hunt for crimes against humanity and actually prosecuting them. The A argument is that the United States refused the ICC staff members actual visas when entering the United States. The B argument is that crimes against humanity include things like war action in Afghanistan, an investigation that has started since 2003, and the United States has not been cooperating, specifically right now because of Trump specifically saying you can't enter the United States or even prosecute these individuals. The C argument is that the chief prosecutor of the ICC called Trump's actions basically shameful and for violating the judicial proceedings and violating international law. The United States is not abiding by the international law right now. But the D argument is that U.S. criminals have basically been able to get away by just killing random civilians during the Afghanistan war. So this is currently signaling to the Middle East and the EU and all the neighboring countries in that area that the United States will continue to, this contributes to the stigma of anti-Western sentiment, which is what's fueling a lot of terrorist organizations currently within the status quo. So what happens when we pass our plan is that first of all, the ICC is able to leverage power against the United States. My opponents are correct that the ICC can prosecute individuals without state compliance, but you can see here that the United States being a state party basically means that they are being committed to being able to prosecute these crimes. The A argument is that they would be able to prosecute people from the Afghanistan war, torturing individuals that can now be legally prosecuted. The B argument is that there are currently hate crimes on the border of Mexico and Guatemala that we are also guilty of and not taking responsibility for. And because the United States has delayed a whole bunch of prosecution actions, you can see that the ICC, as a state, when there is a state party member, has more leverage over the United States to tell them and to coerce them into actually taking responsibility for their actions. The second argument is that the Trump administration is actually signaling commitment. You can see that Trump himself may be denying the visas to these specific staff members, but his actual administration is in support of wanting to be part of the ICC. I'll get to you at the end. But this means that when Trump is being checked back by his actual administration and by normal means, that means that the Congress is basically, or not the Congress, we're basically becoming a state party member of the ICC, which means that Trump and his irrational actions can be checked back by his administration. The impact is that, first of all, there is an established rule of law, which means that there is international checks on Trump and the United States. But the second argument is that the United States can be prosecuted for war crimes, which means that we can deter the Western anti-sentiment that's currently happening in the status quo. Sorry to get to your second question, but I took one.
Okay.
The order is too often case, and I have a lot, so I might be slightly fast, so just slow or clear if you need me.
Okay.
Okay, and then, yeah, so too often, and then I'll go case in the order that they did, so human, wait, what was the tagline of your first DA?
Soft
power,
power,
yeah,
and
and
then crimes against humanity.
Try not to go faster than Shannon did, because that's about my limit.
I'll stick to that pace. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. The first decided Western imperialism. The uniqueness is that the ICC is a tool of Western imperialism. The ASA point is that Reuters writes that the court often punishes leaders from small, weak states while ignoring crimes committed by rich, powerful states. The BISA point is that all nine situations that the ICC investigated from 2016 were against African nations specifically, those that have incomes of less than $15,000 per person. The CISA point is that the African Union has criticized the ICC and called on multiple occasions for all 33 countries to resign. The DISA point is that leaked internal reports show that they were purposely ignoring European and Western leaders in favor of persecuting African nations because, quote, the international prosecutor said it was easier to do so. But the ISA point is a report by Pazim Buka, sorry if I'm butchering the name, an African think tank, often said that the ICC went after popular left-wing leaders in African nations, choosing to ignore ones that were more friendly to Western interests. So the link is that the plan justifies a form of neocolonialism. The ASA point is that the ICC is controlled by majority Western nations, which means ultimately we're going to be policing and prosecuting more of African nations. The second link is that the United States has already shown neocolonial tendencies and would continue to use this as a tool to oppress African nations. The ASA point is that they would undoubtedly use the court and bully the court to prosecute those nations who are anti-Western sentiments. For example, certain nations in Sub-Saharan Africa express strong anti-interest against U.S. coming into drilling. I'll take it at the end of the point. UN coming into drilling. So Trump would undoubtedly use the court to try to get these leaders out of power. Any leader who's against Western interests, like the word for this is what exactly the U.S. did in Venezuela and stuff like that, where they're getting rid of leaders who are anti-U.S. sentiment. They'd undoubtedly use the court to do this. The Beast point is that an Oxford study said that Trump could lobby the ICC to target leaders of African nations, specifically those that are unfriendly to his interests, showing that he did it before. Okay, the impacts? Oh yeah, sure. I'm saying that Trump was because Trump always has multiple occasions that he's done that. So why is the legitimized Trump will also push them even more to target the African nations, specifically those countries such as Burundi that are showing anti-US sentiment in the first place. The impacts, the first impact is no value in life. Neoliberalism justifies no value in life as it's inevitable that all non-Eurocentric experiences are subject to genocide. The second argument is that neoliberalism will ultimately justify multinational corporations going into stealing African resources like what happened in the African scramble for Africa specifically. So many businesses in the United States already express interest in wanting to go into Africa and then steal mining minerals and take out their natural resources in the first place. Trump would undoubtedly use it to justify it to increase the amount of exploitation of African people. That multinational corporations are often super anti-African workers. Thousands of them die every year from unsafe conditions, meaning that you only supercharge this even more. The next argument is checks and balances. The uniqueness and corruption. The uniqueness is that one, the United States Department of State cites one of the reasons for referring to the ICC as the insufficient checks and balances on the authority of the ICC prosecutor and judges and insufficient following and politicized prosecutions or other abuses according to the National Security Report. The second argument is John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, says that the ICC lacks checks and balances, exercises jurisdiction over crime that is disputed and ambiguous definitions, and has failed to deter plus punish atrocity and crime. The third argument is that the ICC includes an independent office of public court counsel for defendants, and many defense lawyers have accused the ICC of giving them smaller budgets and resources than the prosecution are not funding the law. For example, they have many shaky evidence that shows them that they get evidence and witness statements with days before trial, that these were important statements that determine whether the accused person is actually guilty or not. The fourth argument is that the evidence fast enough. The fourth argument is that the Human Rights Watch reported that the ICC prosecution team had flawed investigations of situations in Uganda, Rwanda, plus the Congo because they refused to consider the role that the government played in the investigation, choosing instead to go after this one person who often turned out to be like these leaders who were innocent. Fifth argument, the ICC launched an investigation about state cooperation, which is problematic because the ICC acts inconsistently in the selection of cases and won't take part in cases because it alleges legitimizing. But the Beast point of links. If the US joined the ICC, we're endorsing helping the legal body that gives really unfair trials and all about corruption issues. This issue is the next one. The ICC legitimacy is right now. African nations are already like are many in non-Western nations who the ICC is legitimate in joining their supercharges. Because now when everyone joining, you're giving some legitimacy to this organization that's super powerful at the end of that time. The second argument is that the ICC will get more resources from the US, specifically Trump. The argument that Trump will encourage them to have these hardline crime policies, which seems really unfavorable to like defendants or people with the ICC. But also, he prospects that Trump will really use this court to target other people who he doesn't like, which is what he said he wants to do and done stuff in the past. Basically, in terms of you see more corrupt and more unfair politics and people being inevitably convicted and not given fair trials. The impact of this dehumanization is one of the distinctly target minority nations and blood leaders who are trying to be popular among and create policies that are anti-Western sentiment. We also see dehumanization and suffering. Yeah. Let's go to their case. The problem with their case is that they don't have any external links. Trump probably has total soft power or soft or low soft power. So they talk about ceiling. There's probably an all public player. It's not just because the US is enjoying these other countries are doing they see that they've only gone after African countries. They've only gone after non-Western countries. Like they've literally chosen to target non-African countries over Western India. This is probably why I feel like no matter what it is, the ICC is going to go after African countries. So all this single thing has an L cause. Also, they talk about Duterte. There's really no correlation. I think it's like Duterte is going to magically join back. It's like Duterte wants to go to jail. He's not going to join back in the first place. All I mean is regardless of what they say. So we don't want to signal resources to
2, which is an indication that it's not the ICC that's targeting. It's these governments that want the ICC to prosecute the hate crimes within the nation. But the third response here is that 20% of these cases are also referred to the ICC by the UN Security Council, which means if it's unfair, then there are alternative root causes that mean that the US is not going to be increasing this number. And if, but this also means that if the UN is fair, that means that the prosecution is also fair. They make all these arguments about how the AU wants to resign and how they're ignoring UN nations, but I've already answered this argument. The reason why the AU wants to resign is because they see that countries like the UN or countries like the US are not bound by the same regulation, which means the only way we'll be able to check for these is if the US joins the ICC. Finally, they make this argument about how we talk with going after populist leaders. The first argument here is that they're simply not disempirically denied. You can look for countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where the country of Uganda or Uganda, who's literally a militant, was found guilty of hate crimes and sexual assault crimes, which is an indication that these are not just populist leaders, these are people who have committed crimes. On the level, they say we can justify neocolonialism. There's literally zero point to it. The US is massively neocolonial. Like, we had a colonial period like in the 1890s or like the Philippines or whatever. This is completely non-unique. The second response here is that there's no warrant here, so you shouldn't be buying this argument. The second thing is about how the US shows neocolonial tendencies. Yeah, this stumps the entirety of your uniqueness story, because if the US shows neocolonial tendencies, it doesn't need the ICC to be neocolonial. But the second response is that the ICC is keeping checking back for colonialism because it can prosecute the United States for things like war crimes going to Afghanistan, which means it's a necessary deterrence factor. But the third response here is that Trump cannot use the court because the ICC is too powerful to have all these checks in place. You can look toward a 2017 UCLA report that found that several new measures were adopted to increase efficiency and decrease the impact of state abuse on the ICC as a whole, which is an indication that we're able to solve. Finally, on the impact of public talk about no values, I can argue that saying that there can be no values like justifies taking away all values in the first place, which is uniquely bad. But secondarily, when they make the impact about multinational corporations, we can say this is not unique. Like Shell and ExxonMobil are already in Nigeria, which means that China is already happening, which means that this is completely not unique. On the disadvantage of checks and balances, on the uniqueness of the argument that there are insufficient checks on the prosecutor, we would make the argument that there's enough one here. Either there are insufficient checks on the prosecutor, which means that these African nations will not be impacted by neocolonialism, or the prosecutor is sufficient, which means countries like the US will be checked by them. So they're not able to win either way. Next, they make this argument about Bolton, saying that ICC lacks balance is our first argument, that this is completely non-unique, it's not changed by the United States. And secondarily, Bolton has political motives because he's obviously super right-wing and he doesn't want to be prosecuted for his militaristic mindset, which means that clearly he'll say these things. Next, they make this argument about how the ICC includes like these independent offices, they give small budgets. We would argue that our 2017 new reforms probably check staffers because they're trying to level the playing field. This is also clearly not given that they saw success in countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Finally, they talk about all these human rights issues and like the launch of state cooperation. We would argue that they're not launching that state cooperation because for members of the ICC to resign. It's because they believe that this is an imperialist body. So let there's no alternative cause. They have to work on this. This is specifically why the AU has said that everyone else should resign from this. On the legal level, or sorry, okay, on the legal level, let's see, they're not just indicting populists, they're also indicting people who do crimes. So right, they're probably indicting some good people. The fact is, one, they're also specifically not indicting a ton of Western leaders that they should be. And two, they're indicting this work in a really flawed way, as we outline in our next argument that I'll get into in a second. Okay, they say that the U.S. is terminally neo-colonialist, right? But the U.S. also has a lot of the U.S. is like Canada, right? So they have a lot of legitimacy, and if they give legitimacy to this world where it's also super neo-colonial, by joining it, that's definitely going to make the issue worse.
So why don't you give Trump more tools?
It's not unique because it gives Trump more tools to promote neo-colonialism, which is probably not. Okay, they say the ICC will check back against the U.S. Like, I mean, no, they won't. The U.S. will now just give them legitimacy to continue being neo-colonialist, to continue not trying cases in a fair way with all these checks and balances. And also, like, I think it's pretty reasonable to say that there's some chance that Trump will hijack this entire project for, like, really trying to be promoting his criminal justice agenda. I'm not saying he would have total power over it, but we know his incentives related to crime are. So it's reasonable to say that there's some chance to drive the ICC even more neo-colonialist, even more hard on crime. Why would Trump ever give U.S. soldiers the ICC willingly? Okay, they say again that Trump can't, they have their UCLA study, but like, again, the U.S. just give legitimacy to this really long body and potentially make it worse if anything. They say, okay, just saying nobody life justifies nobody life. I mean, no, neo-colonialism is what causes no value life. You're simply arguing this. Okay, again, they talk about how it's not actually, yeah, okay, that's all there. The key thing is this court is quite imperialist. Like, they don't invite Western leaders. They might be inviting some good people, but they're choosing specifically not to invite Western leaders that they should be. It's an imperialist body. The United States may also have some imperialism, but they give this body more legitimacy and give Trump more tools to promote neo-colonialism and imperialism, which leads to no value to life and all this stuff related to corporations. But on the checks and balances argument, they say that they're no one.
The prosecution probably be one who's found the most, that affects the most amount of people, and it's also the most damaging. Specifically, how he's showing that thousands of African workers die every year at the hands of Western corporations, and how specifically a lot of Western corporations get more into neocolonialism is probably the most important impact that has to be the result of it, especially because no value life impacts also come first, and they make all of their impacts inevitable for this. We start to solve for neocolonialism, probably solve for the most important impact. Right? Overview of the corruption argument to us, like the corruption argument takes up any of the arguments they're saying about how it's effective. Here's why. The problem with the ICC is that they're not giving up to the defense. They're not like supporting the defense. That's the argument. They claim that really doesn't make sense. The argument they spend so much money on prosecuting people that the prosecution, the one that like ever really has a chance of further. This is what they seem to happen and stuff. Where the ICC has really much strong money in prosecution, and they go after poor non-Western countries. That is what the ICC does in the first place, which is also insane from like a lot of these poor ICC or non-Western nations tend to be like African nations, and they tend to go after the Western nations don't like. They tend to go after African nations, Western nations don't like. Yes, they do some of the stuff, but like a lot of the stuff they do is also bad, and we should be endorsing this legitimate organization. Yeah.
The mechanism is flawed.
Yeah, the problem is that the mechanism is flawed in the first
unless it was